DK show up on the air on your radio dials, 105.1 FM, 790 AM. Also available online at sportstalk1051.com. You got your smart devices, your Google and Alexa home devices. Stream it up over there. Download that Sports Talk app and take it on the go. Video streams are also up and rolling this morning on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, and Instagram here. But happy Tuesday. Appreciate you making us part of your start here this morning. Back at it. It's a little under the weather, but we're powering through here this morning because we've got lots to catch up on here from the last couple days or so. So what do we got on a good old game plan for us here? Well, last night, the conclusion of the college football season, Ohio State is your national champions after taking down Notre Dame 34-23 last night. So that's the conclusion of the college football season. So, but it doesn't mean we're done talking. So some college football and such. We're going to be catching up with Mr. RJ Cardinal in a couple hours from now because we got lots to hit up with in terms of the Badger football program over the weekends. Probably saw a little back and forth going out there with the whole Xavier Lucas situation there. So Xavier Lucas, just to kind of sum it up here quickly, again, we'll deep dive into everything here when we get to RJ in a couple hours. But by now, you probably heard from, what was it, last month or so, Xavier Lucas looking into the transfer portal. Badgers weren't allowing that, saying, they had some NIL commitments and such. Xavier Lucas withdraws from the university, goes to the University of Miami. He's from Florida and such. And, well, now there's some finger pointing and some back and forth here. It was over the weekend, UW-Madison, Wisconsin, releasing a statement in part saying, "We are disappointed that Xavier Lucas has chosen to withdraw from the University of Wisconsin. He has been a valued member of our football program, and we were looking forward to helping him continue to grow as a student." On December 2nd, Xavier and Wisconsin Athletics entered into a binding 2-year NIL agreement, reflecting his strong commitment to continuing with the Wisconsin football program. After that, though, it seemed Xavier Lucas then wanted to go to the University of Miami. And part of the statement from Wisconsin says, under the transfer provision used by Xavier this past week, any contact between a student athlete enrolled at one institution and the football program to which they are transferring is prohibited per NCAA rules. We have credible information indicating impermissible contact between Xavier and the University of Miami football team. Prior, so there we go. I had to shut the mic off there for a second. Had a little choke in the throat there. So Wisconsin essentially accusing Miami of doing some tampering and such. So Xavier's attorney saying, "Nuh-uh, not true." So you got a little back and forth going on between these two programs and such. So we'll talk more about it with RJ coming up in a couple hours from now. So, oh boy, choking up here this morning. Bear with me. All right, what else do we got on a good old game plan? This is the effects of coming back from a cold, so I apologize. But we're gonna talk some football. We're gonna kick off our Packers offseason stuff here this morning. Take a look at kind of different positions and coaches and take a look at the offseason. And we're going to start off taking a look at the coaches because we know Packers have a couple of openings. We got the quarterback's coach, defensive line coach, and such. So we're going to kick off our Packers offseason outlook by taking a look at the coaching staff. And that includes Matt LaFleur. That includes Jeff Halfley, special teams coordinator, Rich Bisaccia, which I know some Packers fans would like to see Rich Bisaccia maybe move on at this point. So we're going to kick off our Packers offseason outlook, breakdown, positions, coaches, but we're going to focus on the coaches for today. So that'll be coming up, but the NFC North definitely getting pretty intriguing because, well, the Bears got the big fish. Bears yesterday getting Ben Johnson as their new head coach, the offensive coordinator for the Detroit Lions. So Ben Johnson is going to be staying within the division. But that was probably the hire that I think maybe some Packers fans, maybe even some Vikings fans didn't want to see the Bears essentially get. But we'll see how it transpires. You know, it's different from being an offensive coordinator and calling plays to now running a program. So we'll talk a little bit about that coming up here. We're going to talk some college hoops. Badgers are in action tonight. Marquette is also in action tonight. So we're going to talk some Bucks trade rumors. It is an ASAP Used Auto Parts Grind My Gears Tuesday. Lots to get to here this morning. So let's jump right into it because we're going to take a quick break and we're going to talk some football to lead things off here this morning. Stick around. We'll be back right after these quick words. With those temperatures, we know how cold it is outside right now, and that has led to some cancellations and delays. So make sure you head to our website, sportstalk1051.com, and check out the WEAU 13 News First Alert School Closings brought to you by Hovland's and Service Master. So there is quite the list over there. Make sure you go check it out and to see if one of your kiddos' school is closed or delayed. I don't think there's really any delays here this morning. It looks like looks like they're all closed or closed and some virtual learning going on over there. I know Eau Claire was already no school yesterday, today, and tomorrow and such, but definitely an extensive list out there. So again, check it out at sportstalk1051.com. The First Alert School Closings, WEAU 13 News First Alert School Closings, brought to you by Hovland's and Service Master over there. Stay warm out there, especially if you have to, if you have to work outside. Tip of the cap to all of you that got to be working outside. Be safe, stay warm out there. All right, whether construction, delivery, or whatever the case may be. If you got to be spending some time outside today and you got to be working outside today, please be safe and stay warm out there. All right. So, boy, apologies for that opening playbook there. Coming back from a cold and sore throat. Man colds are a real thing. I'm sorry. I know it's kind of a joke, but boy, was I knocked on my you know what this weekend. So I apologize for choking up a little bit and had to take a quick break and grab some water and such. But hopefully we're good to go here this morning. So again, just a really quick back and forth with or recap of the game plan here. I want to talk some Badgers, a lot of Badgers with this whole Xavier Lucas situation there. We're going to talk to RJ about that in a couple hours from now, the latest on that situation. Obviously, Ohio State win a national championship. College football season is now in the books. We're going to talk some football coming up here in just a sec. Packers fans, or if you are a Vikings fan, and I know we've got Lions fans here too, your reaction to Ben Johnson taking the head job. And it sounds like, according to Ian Rappaport this morning, Aaron Glenn's going to be the Jets head coach. He's got a second interview with the Jets today. He is the only the second interview lined up for the Jets. And the goal is apparently to not let him leave the building. So Lions fans, got to imagine you're probably pretty down at this point, but probably not too surprising. But the rest of the NFC North, your the fans of, hey, if we got some Bears fans over there too, Packers, Vikings fans, your thoughts on Ben Johnson staying in the division and going over there to Chicago. Hit me up with that, all right? Hit me up with some texts, 715-830-1912 on that Shoe Doctors bullpen line. So we're going to talk about that here in a little bit. We're going to talk some college hoops. Badger hoops are in action tonight. Marquette's in action tonight. Bucks will be back in action tomorrow. But we're going to go over some trade rumors. And would you be good with the Bucks trading Chris Middleton for Jimmy Butler if it came down to that? A little informal poll. Thumbs up, thumbs down. What do you got over there? So, and of course, it is a Grind My Gears Tuesday. ASAP Used Auto Parts. Grind My Gears Tuesday. What's grinding your gears? Send those on over via the text line at 715-830-1912 or comment on the video streams. That works over there as well. Let's begin, though, kind of taking a look at this NFC North and, well, recapping the playoffs this past weekend. Obviously, the big one with the Commanders taking down the Detroit Lions on Saturday night. And it kind of moved up the coaching carousel for a lot of teams there. Bears getting their guy with Ben Johnson. And by all accounts, the Jets look like they're going to get their guy, Aaron Glenn. So plucking the two coordinators from that Lions team and even some position coaches. The offensive line coach for the Lions apparently has a second interview with the Seahawks for their offensive coordinator position. So, and you got to imagine Ben Johnson and Aaron Glenn leave, they may be taking some position coaches with them. So Detroit's coaching staff, it's potential could be of taking a big hit, taking a big hit in terms of talented coaches leaving in that. So, but if you're a Packers fan, or if we got some Vikings fans listening right now, your thoughts on Ben Johnson going over to Chicago? Was that the one hire that you were hoping Chicago wasn't going to make? Or are you of the mindset that's like, that's still Chicago? Don't have a whole lot of faith that they can, it's a good hire, but don't have a whole lot of faith that they can still make it work here. So, my thoughts on the whole thing. One, first of all, I was a little surprised that they were able to get it done. I mean, on the surface, when you look at the roster for Chicago, it makes all the sense in the world. You've got a young quarterback that I think a lot of people still believe there's talent there. You got Roma Dunze, you've got DJ Moore, you've got some nice pieces on the defensive side. There's a lot already in place in Detroit, or excuse me, in Chicago. So from that side, it makes complete sense. The one that surprised the part that surprised me a little bit was that he's going to a place where a GM is already in place, and a GM that's maybe on the hot seat here. And maybe he looks at that as a situation like, okay, eventually I can maybe push out this guy and get my own GM in place. Because by all accounts, or some reports out there, seems like the dude might already be making $13 million a year, Ben Johnson a year. So, I mean, that's a big chunk of change for a first-time head coach coming in here. But I thought maybe he'd go to a franchise like the Raiders where he could pair up with a GM that he is familiar with, that he's comfortable with, and that he wants to work with. But that's not the case. But maybe he looks at this as like, hey, that's still something that could be down the road here. But when you look at player-wise, on this roster, there's definitely a lot of pieces to work with. There's no question about it. There's definitely a lot of pieces. And it sounds like he's bringing Dennis Allen over as defensive coordinator. Dennis Allen, a two-time head coach, recently with the Saints, Raiders over there, defensive coordinator back in the day with was it the Broncos and then the Saints as well. So that's a big hire for Ben Johnson. Not only getting a talented defensive mind, but a guy who has been a head coach for a couple of franchises there. Somebody that he could kind of maybe kind of feed off a little bit and kind of lean on a little bit. It's not that rare to see first-time head coaches bring in a coordinator that's got head coaching experience and such. But we're looking at this. I'm from a Packers fan's perspective here. You're looking at this, and part of you is probably thinking, "Now, crap." What we saw with Detroit's offense is now going to be coming to Chicago. And I think Ben Johnson is going to work well with Caleb Williams. I think this is a big hire for the development of Caleb Williams. So I'm sure he's going to bring his playbook, those plays and such. But the thing is, too, while it's a big hire, and I think it's going to improve their offense, and I think it's going to improve their franchise overall. But it's one thing to be an offensive coordinator and calling plays and kind of focusing on just that side of the football. It's another now to be the head man, to be the head coach and building this whole team and being the face of this whole team. And now you got to build a program. He's going from a franchise with Detroit that is one of the best offensive lines in the entire NFL. Going to a franchise now that has struggled to build up their offensive line. I got to imagine that's going to be a big point of emphasis for Chicago this offseason is to build up that offensive line. But it still starts, when we talk about all these flashy offenses and such, it still starts from the ground up. It still starts from offensive line play. And Detroit has one of the better offensive lines in the game, and that was a big benefit for Ben Johnson to be able to do what he wanted to do on offense and be a top 5 scoring offense these last couple of seasons here. So that's going to be a point of emphasis for Chicago. I think we got to see how it all plays out. I think it's a good hire for Chicago. They got the big fish. They got a guy that could come in and we assume work wonders with Caleb Williams. He's going to bring a lot of concepts over that worked well this past season, past couple years with Detroit's. I mean, if with what they did with Jared Goff and Amon St. Brown, you look at position player wise, and you can kind of connect a lot of dots there. Cole Kmet in Chicago, Sam Laporta. I'm not saying who's better or who's equal or anything like that, but Cole Kmet at tight end, Sam Laporta, Detroit. You got DJ Moore and Roma Dunze mixed in with a little Keenan Allen over there. Obviously, Detroit had Amon St. Brown and Williams in that. Detroit's had a two-headed monster with Jahmyr Gibbs and Montgomery. I would think maybe another point of emphasis for Chicago this offseason might be to add a little bit more running backs to their backfield and such. So I'm sure there'll be a nice turnaround in the first year, but let's see how it all plays out. This is a big step for a young head coach, and there's going to be high expectations. No question about it. Ben Johnson's going to have to be prepared for some high expectations from the fan base. I think from a national media standpoint, I'm sure if the first year doesn't go where it's double-digit wins in a playoff, there's going to be like, what the HE double hockey sticks, what happened and such. Be a little patient with this. You still have to build up other parts of that team. But, as a Packers fan, kind of like, stop poop. They made a good hire. They made a good hire. And you're assuming that their offense is going to improve and that their overall team is going to get better. So on that side, it's like, crap. But it's big loss, though, for Detroit's on the offensive side, too. I think Jared Goff, they're going to have to get that offense coordinator. I don't know who it's going to be. I don't know who Dan Campbell is going to bring in. If Seattle's successful in hiring Detroit's offensive line coach to be their offensive coordinator, this offensive coordinator hire for Dan Campbell is going to be, I think, perhaps the biggest move in the offseason for Detroit to try to get that right, because you want to make sure that Jared Goff is still playing at a high level. You want to bring in a coordinator. You want to bring in a head coach or a coach, a play caller that is going to continue to put Jared Goff in a position to succeed and to play well. And is it somebody on the staff that you could promote from within? Is it quarterbacks coach Mark Brunell? Or is Mark Brunell going to follow Ben Johnson to Chicago and be the offensive coordinator over there? I would imagine, though, if he becomes the offensive coordinator, gets promoted in Detroit, that he would be the play caller over there. But that's something. You try to keep that status quo a little bit, and that's going to be huge. It's going to be huge for Dan Campbell to find that new offensive coordinator that is going to continue to evolve and continue with this offense, a top 5 scoring offense in the league. Losing Aaron Glenn definitely would be a huge loss too. But if you asked me to pick which one's a bigger loss for Detroit with their offensive coordinator, defense coordinator, I'd pick the offensive coordinator because of who your quarterback is too. And this is not a knock on Jared Goff. It's not a knock on Jared Goff whatsoever. It's just Jared Goff and Ben Johnson did a fantastic job of putting Jared Goff in a position to succeed and to win games and to extend his career, essentially. I mean, when Jared Goff was first, acquired by Detroit and the Rams had to attach a first-round pick in that, the first couple of years, everybody in the world thought, okay, Detroit's going to draft a quarterback in the first round. Or they thought it was going to be Malik Willis when Malik Willis was coming in the draft. In Detroit, they're like, no, we're going to pump the brakes here a little bit. We're not going to reach for a quarterback just to get a quarterback. We're going to see what we got here. And that's a credit to Detroit for doing that. But this is going to be a huge hire. It's definitely a huge hit for Detroit to lose both these coordinators. And if you're a Packers fan, Vikings fan, or whatever, you're probably doing a little fist pump like, that's right. But the fact that, Johnson staying in Chicago, you're like, crap. I don't think it'll be, year one, you're talking Super Bowl or anything like that. But it's definitely trending upward. And there's got to be a confidence and there's got to be, some positive vibes going on at Hallis Hall and in Chicago and such. It's gonna be different. If I were to say one thing to Chicago fans, don't put all your eggs in one basket right away and get all your hopes up for year one. But definitely be excited and be pumped up for the future. There's no question about that. Definitely be excited for that because you're bringing in a coordinator that should put your second year quarterback in a position to be incredibly successful. Incredibly successful. And now it's going to be up to Poles, the general manager, to find the players, to plug in those players to help that coach be successful. Offensive line, maybe more running back help over there too. But again, from a Packers fans standpoint, yes, I wish Ben Johnson would have went out of the division. I wish he would have went to somewhere like the Raiders or Jacksonville or wherever the case may be. Would have liked to have seen that for sure. But that's not going to be the case. And I think right now, the NFC North, this is going to be a very fun division, maybe a very stressful division to watch for the next couple years, next few years here. There is intrigue. And it was the same way this last year, but now you're adding a new element to this division with Ben Johnson being the new head coach in Chicago. The NFC North, and this regular season, perhaps the best division in football, perhaps the worst division when it came to the playoffs, because regular season you had 3 teams, double-digit wins. None of those 3 teams in the NFC North won a dang playoff game. It's the NFC East that is represented in the NFC Championship game with the Commanders and the Eagles. But going forward, this NFC North division is going to be, I think, if you're a Packers fan or if you're a Vikings fan, it's going to be stressful. You're going to have some close games. You're going to have a lot of scoreboard watching. You're going to have a lot of standings watching. For if you're a Bears fan, you're probably excited to, all right, we're going to be in this mix now. Going forward, Detroit fan, maybe you're a little bit nervous to see how it all plays out, losing all your coordinators and such. But in my mind, there's no question this is going to be, if you're just a football fan in general, you're going to be watching the NFC North for the next couple of years here because you got storylines with each team. Obviously, with Detroit, who's going to be the new offensive coordinator and defensive coordinator coming in here? Can they kind of pick up where Aaron Glenn, assuming Aaron Glenn gets that Jets job, which it looks like it's going to be the case, will they continue to evolve with that defense? Obviously, getting healthier guys back like Aiden Hutchinson and such is going to do wonders. But can they continue to evolve? Offensively, can you continue to be a top 5 scoring team with maybe a new voice? Maybe it's a voice from the outside the organization. You look at Minnesota. They got a lot of free agents coming up here. I think based off play percentage, what was that graph? Minnesota's got the most entering free agency. But you got J.J. McCarthy coming in here. You exceeded expectations from a lot of people this year. Where do you take that next step? Well, you're going to probably buy maybe very good chance you're going to have a new quarterback. Is that going to take another step for you? Does it take you down just a little bit because, even though he was a rookie this past year, he didn't play? Who are the other weapons? Who are the other pieces that you're going to bring in to help surround that? Chicago with Ben Johnson, and assuming it is going to be Dennis Allen, you've got some solid coaches coming in. Are those rookies from this previous year, the Caleb Williams, the Roma Dunzes, are they going to take a jump in year 2? Will there be a little bit of a transition period? How soon will we see those results come to fruition for Chicago? But definitely the arrow is trending upward. And Green Bay, you look at it like, I think this is a big year in terms of, okay, Jordan Love's entering his 3rd year as a starter. Are we going to see a jump from him? Matt LaFleur, are we going to see consistency? Are we going to see better, game management decisions, that sort of stuff? Defensively, Jeff Hafley, are we going to see the defense continue to grow? There's different storylines involving these 4 teams. And I have no question in my mind. I'll even throw Chicago in this because never say never, but I have no question in my mind the NFC North is going to be a dogfight next year. And I don't know if you're going to see a team or 2 teams like Minnesota and Detroit have 13, 14 wins or something like that. This is a division I think potentially could beat up a little bit on each other. But I think it's, if you're a casual football fan, if you're a casual NFL fan, and you're looking at this division and you're thinking, all right, there's a lot to be a fan of and looking at this thing, not just for this year, but for the next couple of years, next few years here. You got quarterbacks that are probably going to be around for a while. Maybe Detroit, Jared Goff, who knows? I would assume for the next few years, but you got McCarthy, you've got Caleb Williams, you got Jordan Love, some youngsters over there. So there's definitely a lot of intrigue surrounding this NFC North division. There's no question about it. And if you're a Packers fan, maybe you're a little bit nervous. And that's okay. It means the division's going to be tough. It's not the 2000 teens anymore where you could kind of rest on your laurels and be like, oh, yeah, we're just going to outscore everybody and we're probably going to win the division again with 12 wins, 11 wins. Everybody else stinks. No, that ain't the case. It's not the case. But what are your thoughts, Packers fans, or if you're a Vikings fan, or if you're a Lions fan, or a Bears fan, with Ben Johnson staying within the division and going over to Chicago right now? I'm going to take a quick break, and I want to kick off kind of our off-season self-scouting series. Well, maybe we'll call it like that with Green Bay. And since we're on the topic of coaches today, I want to take a look at the Packers coaches, and not just Matt LaFleur, but Rich Bisaccia, Jeff Halfley, those guys. We know Green Bay is looking for a new defensive line coach. We know they're looking for a new quarterbacks coach. But taking a look at this and doing some self-scouting and such, this is, I think, and I don't want to get on a tangent that Matt LaFleur should be fired this year, but I would agree, and I'll go with this side, that I do think he's entering 2025 with a little bit of a spotlight, and especially when you have your general manager go out in his season-ending presser last week and say, I think it's time for us to have a little sense of urgency in competing for championships. Okay. That inadvertently, maybe not inadvertently, but it does put a little bit more pressure on your head coach and your team to get the job done. And I also feel like Goody made that comment too because he does recognize how this division is going to look like in the next few years. I feel like he made that comment with the notion like, hey, we're in a really tough division, and it's going to be tough to get out of this thing, and it's only going to get tougher from here on out. So let's kick off our Packers offseason self-scouting series, if you will. But first up, we'll take a quick break and finish up the first hour after these quick words. With the temperatures a bit colder these days, you're telling me, man, your vehicle may be working a lot harder this winter season. Then add in for the potential for poor road conditions, and winter driving can be tough on your vehicle. That's where ASAP Used Auto Parts can help you out. Make sure your vehicle is prepared for this winter season with perhaps a new oil change to keep your engine running smooth and that you have the proper tires for those snow covered roads. ASAP Used Auto Parts can help you with both of those. Just give them a call to set up your appointment at 715-514-4501. Don't forget, it is also an ASAP Used Auto Parts Grind My Gears Tuesday. What's grinding your gears? Get it off your chest. Let us know. Hit us up with a text or comment on the video streams. Finishing up the first hour here this morning. We were catching up and chatting a little football and such, but we're gonna also I want to get to coming up probably in the next hour. We're gonna try to touch on everything here. We're chatting some football. Gonna chat some hoops with the Badgers and Marquette in action tonight. Also, latest Bucks trade rumors potentially surrounding Jimmy Butler. So we're gonna hit that up. But I also want to talk some baseball here too, because today it will be the reveal of who gets into the Hall of Fame. Will Ichiro be in there as a unanimous? Could CC get in there? CC Sabathia, one-time Brewers pitcher, as well. One of the most memorable seasons in Brewers history, at least for somebody of my generation, my age over there for sure. So we're going to find those out who makes the Hall later on today. But before all that, we kick off our Packers off-season self-scouting series. And since we spent the first hour talking about some coaching changes and such in the NFC North and the trickle-down effect of everything, I want to start it off with the Packers coaching staff themselves. Now, Matt LaFleur ain't going anywhere. I know that may upset some Packers fans out there, but maybe after a week or so, that's kind of simmer down a little bit. But he ain't going anywhere. And by all accounts, Jeff Halfley ain't going anywhere either. If the news is true that Aaron Glenn is going to be getting the Jets job. Nobody has said that, but he's the only one that has a second interview, and that's today. And according to Ian Rappaport, the goal is to not let him leave the building. So, and I believe Halfley's only request was from the Jets. So Jeff Halfley ain't going anywhere. Adam Stenavich, for that matter, ain't going anywhere either because he interviewed for the Bears head coaching job. But could there be some other moves outside of the Packers letting go of their defensive line coach? We know Tom Clements, their quarterbacks coach, is also retiring. So you have a couple of openings there. And one coordinator that I feel like has been a mixed bag in terms of Packers fans' feelings towards, and that's Rich Bisaccia. And I guess I'd be curious to hear from you Packers fans. What are your thoughts on Rich Bisaccia? Should the Packers retain him? Should they look to move on from him? Because it felt like towards the end, and especially, maybe more so after that Chicago regular season finale and then the game against Philly in that postseason, sure felt like, at least on social media, that the narrative was switching to maybe it's time to move on from Rich Bisaccia. So I'm curious to see what our 715 listeners out there feel like. Hit me up. Kind of an informal poll there. But back to Matt LaFleur, I do feel like heading into the 2025 season, I don't think I'd necessarily put him on a hot seat. I don't think I'd use that term heading into 2025. But I do feel like it is a big year in terms of growth for him, for this team overall. And I think maybe I'm reading too much into it, but when you've got Goody last Thursday, in his season-ending presser, going out there and saying that they've got to have a little bit more sense of urgency, I think that puts pressure on himself too. There's no question about it. Pressure on himself, but also pressure on the coaching staff and pressure on the players. I mean, the exact quote from Goody last week was, "We need to continue to ramp up our sense of urgency. I think it's time we start competing for championships." So I think heading into 2025, I don't know if I'd say spotlight, but maybe a little bit of a little bit of a light kind of growing on this coaching staff and such, and be like, okay, where are we going to see the next steps of improvement? Where are we going to see these next steps to taking that step to getting to a Super Bowl and to winning a championship, competing for a championship? I've got no problem saying 2025 is a big year for Matt LaFleur, and it's a big year for this team to say, okay, it's not enough, kind of what Tucker Kraft said too. It's not enough about talking, just competing and getting to the postseason and competing. It's about, okay, doing it now and winning. So yes, while I don't feel like Matt LaFleur is on a hot seat, I do feel like there's probably a little bit more pressure, and I do think 2025 is a big season for him. Now, there was times, I don't know if anybody else was like this watching some of the playoff games this past weekend. Whether it was the Commanders, especially. Maybe if that was the first time for some people watching the job that Cliff Kingsbury has done as offensive coordinator with Jane Daniels and such. And I get it, it's based off personnel and that. But, watching that or watching from what the Lions have done over the last couple of years, but specifically the Commanders, there was stuff in there I'm like, I really hope Matt LaFleur is watching. Because this is a league where coaches steal stuff all the time. I mean, Matt LaFleur's talked about it, obviously. You're like, "Oh, okay, I saw this team do this." You try to incorporate it in your own game plan. There was some things in there I was like, "Oh, dang, I would love to see Green Bay try to do that." Utilize that sort of thing. So I wanna see growth from Matt LaFleur. I wanna see growth in terms of play calling. I wanna see growth in terms of game management, time management situations. Um, having Josh Jacobs on this team, did I saw some people kind of throwing this out. Did it kind of like, you incorporate him more of a bell cow type of back? Did that kind of throw LaFleur's game plan and play calling for a little bit of a loop sort of thing? I don't know, but if it did, okay, how do you do better in incorporating Josh Jacobs into your game plans while still, utilizing the passing attack as part of a focal point of your offense? So I want to see growth from Matt LaFleur. I want to see consistency from this offense. I do think 2025 could be a big year for Matt LaFleur. Defensively, how do we continue to get better? Great numbers for year one of Jeff Halfley. But I think there's still some things that we have left that we want. Specifically, pass rush, right? We want to see guys getting home with 4. We want to see guys dominating at the line of scrimmage. Is that a personnel thing? Is it a coaching thing? I'm kind of tending towards maybe it's a personnel thing. Personnel in terms of, are they fitting what Jeff Halfley's wanting to do on the defensive side? So I'm not down on Jeff Halfley at all. I'm pumped about where this defense is heading. I view it more as, okay, personnel side of things. But okay, got a year under your belt. A lot of these guys, a year under this belt now. How do you continue to be better? How do you continue to get better defensively? How does Jeff Halfley continue to get better? First year calling defensive plays as an NFL defensive coordinator. How is he going to continue to trend upward? And then when you look at, and with that too, who's going to be that defensive line coach? I think that's going to be a big, position coaches we tend not to make big deals about. But I think when you look at, okay, what's the biggest thing that you would like to see this defense get better at? You polled Packers fans. I think a majority would say it's going to be pass rush, defensive line, getting home with 4. That's important. Okay, that's what makes this defensive line coach hire, I think, a big hire in terms of like, if they're not going to make a lot of changes personnel wise up front, still going to roll with Kenny Clark and Rashawn Gary and those guys, then it's up to that defensive line coach to come in and say, we're going to fix this. So that puts a little bit more onus on that hire. And then the Rich Bisaccia one, I don't think he's going anywhere at this time. I mean, I think that's flown on by. But I don't think there's any question too that they got to get better at that. in that department. Now, I hope they bring back Brandon McManus. If we're going to criticize Rich Bisaccia for, some of the things that have happened on, Keyshawn Nixon fumbling the ball or other things, you do have to give, if we're going to criticize him for those aspects, you do then, by the same token, have to give him credit for the emergence of Daniel Whalen being a pretty damn good punter. So while we criticize certain aspects of it, we do got to give him credit then for the emergence of Daniel Whalen as a punter. So I do give them, so that's a tip of the Daniel Whalen, I think you're locked there. Bring back Brandon McManus. We don't need to go through that kicking fiasco again. But the biggest thing is if Keyshawn Nixon is going to be somebody that doesn't want to return kicks, how do you fill that role? Does it even matter with the kickoff changes and rules at this point in time? But just stupid penalties. That's, I think, the biggest knock right now. If you polled Packers fans when it comes to Bisaccia, isn't maybe necessarily the individual performances. It's the stupid penalties on special teams. Boneheaded stuff. That's got to stop. And maybe that's because you got youth on special teams again. But that's got to be cleaned up. That stuff's got to be cleaned up. I don't think he's gone, but we definitely got to see some improvements in that department. There's no question about it. All right, coming up next hour, I do want to talk some baseball. I do want to talk some hoops. Bucks trade rumors. Jimmy Butler, yay or nay? Seems like that's kind of picking up a little bit more steam. What we were initially told that Butler doesn't want to go to Milwaukee. Well, some reports out there saying maybe wasn't necessarily told to the Bucks. We'll give you the latest over there. Plus, Badger basketball, the newly ranked 18th Badger men's basketball team in action tonight, along with 10th ranked Marquette. So we will finish up, though, with Morgs. This is your perfect weather, isn't it, Morgs?
Perfect weather for what? Complaining?
Yeah.
It's no one's perfect weather. But I do have to say, I have a brother-in-law that's doing chores right now. So anybody that's out doing farm work or has to be out today.
Yes, construction, farmers, deliveries, whatever.
No complaints here. You guys are doing the hard work. Yeah, exactly. Deliveries. I think a lot of people forget about that. I saw somebody walking a big box up the driveway for someone yesterday. I'm like, woof.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes.
And those can't be the warmest vehicles to zip around in either. So
yeah, especially when you got to have that door open all the time in that. So
I've always wondered how that rolls for people.
Yep.
Thinking of thankless jobs, was thinking off of because obviously the players, the athletes get all the credit. That's who people watch. But let's go football first on the sidelines. What do you think is the most thankless job? Nobody gets credit for it, but it's harder than most people think, or everyone thinks they could do it, but it's actually really difficult.
Ooh,
what would that be?
Probably like a position coach over there.
Okay. How about Packers specific?
I always wanted to be the guy, like Philly's Dom is his name, but like the guy that's always next to the head coach, like the head coach's assistant.
Yeah.
He's always standing when the game's over with. You always see that coach going to the handshake line, but there's always somebody next to him.
Yes.
Like that assistant guy.
Okay.
I always wanted to be that guy.
What do you think that guy does?
Tries to get, it's just kind of like his personal chauffeur, probably.
Or is it more like doctors and nurses where the nurses do a lot of the heavy lifting, but then the doctors come in the room at the end for the last, 90 seconds or so and make the final call?
Yeah.
Is that the situation where the guy that's standing by LaFleur is doing all the work and he's the one pouring over the plays?
The guy that has to keep, what they used to call him? Sean McVay had one. But like keeping them off the field, pulling them back sort of thing.
Kind of rein them in. You want to be that guy.
Yeah.
What about baseball? What do you think the most thankless job is in baseball?
Bullpen catcher.
Oh, yeah.
Just because nobody thinks about it. But
no.
Yeah.
So as an athlete, then let's flip it. Do you think kickers really are the most thankless?
Yeah, you don't need you don't complain about one until you need one.
Okay. So
you don't think about it until you need one. Yeah. That or punters or long snappers.
No. Where on the baseball diamond, then where do you think is the most outfield? Way outfield?
I don't know. That's a tough one.
Because it's really not coming to you most of the time, but when it does, you better reach up and snag that thing out of the air.
Yeah. It's changed over the last couple of years because I think that narrative of like, that guy sucks, just stick him in right field.
Yeah,
It's kind of gone by the wayside a little bit.
because the hits are getting bigger too.
Mhm.
So yeah, it's
Yeah.
not the same game that we used to play.
Yeah.
What about
Exactly.
basketball? Because there's so few players there.
Yeah. Centers.
Yeah.
Old school centers.
Okay.
If you can't shoot from the outside anymore, you're worthless in this game.
Oh, especially the
No more
way.
Shaqs and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Coaching for basketball. Any thankless Turk there? Think Space
head
Jam.
coach. Yeah. Yep.
Lousy game.
Yeah. Thanks, Morgs.
Yeah. Anytime.
Second hour kicking off on this frigid Tuesday. Again, reminder, we've got a bunch of closings, school closings out there. You want to stay tuned to our website, sportstalk1051.com, for the WEAU 13 News First Alert School Closings, brought to you by Hovland's and ServiceMaster. So lots of school closings over there. I know Claire was already closed up for yesterday, today, and tomorrow and such, but definitely a lot of other schools in the 715 and in the state of Wisconsin closed up. So you want to double check that. If you're just getting up and at it this morning, go ahead and do so by visiting our website over there. It is also an ASAP Used Auto Parts Grind My Gears Tuesday. So what's grinding your gears? You can let us know by hitting us up with a text at 715-830-1912 or comment on the video streams. You can comment on the video streams over there too and see what's or let us know what's grinding your gears over there. So we're going to talk some Badgers, Badger football. We're going to get the latest when we talk to RJ Cardinal in the next hour with the whole Xavier Lucas situation. Talk some baseball with the Hall of Fame class getting announced later on today. Will Ichiro Suzuki be a unanimous Hall of Famer? How about CC Sabathia, one-time Brewers pitcher? Will he get in? We'll hit that up. Badger basketball is in action tonight along with Marquette. Want to kick off this hour with some trade rumors, though, for the Bucks. So remember, it was a few weeks ago that with the whole Jimmy Butler situation. So Jimmy Butler wants out of Miami, and the Bucks initially were seen as a possible destination, and then there was a report that the Bucks were told that not to acquire Jimmy Butler because, I mean, apparently that was Jimmy Butler's way of saying he wasn't going to play there. However, that has not been the case, according to Sam Amick from The Athletic, saying that two sources have told him that Jimmy Butler's camp have not told the Bucks that to not trade for Jimmy Butler. So potentially, could the Bucks be in play for Jimmy Butler or another player out there that is potentially involved in some trade rumors, and that would be Bradley Beal. According to Mark Stein, while the Bucks have in the past expressed interest in Jimmy Butler, they have, quote, been more frequently painted as a team likely to rekindle their previous interests in Phoenix's Bradley Beal if they intend to pursue a trade for a player in the $50 million range. So looking at this would take a lot. This would take a lot to acquire. You're talking 3-4 team deals for contracts and money to work. And this would probably require the Bucks to trade Chris Middleton, Bobby Portis, and Pat Connaughton to clear some of that cap space to acquire the likes of either a Jimmy Butler or a Bradley Beal. So I ask you, Bucks fans out there listening right now, would you be in favor of either Bradley Beal or Jimmy Butler? First of all, which one would you rather have? And would you just make it easy with the assumption that means you would have to move on from Bobby Portis, Chris Middleton, and Pat Connaughton? Let me know. Hit me up with a text, 715-830-1912, or comment on the video stream. So let's just make it simple without getting into math numbers and such like that. And salary caps. We don't need to figure all that stuff out. Let's just make it simple. Would you be good? Would you be good if the Bucks traded Middleton, Portis, and Connaughton for either Butler or Bradley Beal? And which one would you rather have? Jimmy Butler, just give you a little bit of a background. He is older. He's 35 years old. It's averaged so far this year in the games he has played, which has been 24 games, 17.2 points per game, 5.3 rebounds, 4.7 assists. Bradley Beal, meanwhile, 17.1 points per game, 3.6 rebounds, 3.3 assists. He's played in 30 games, but he is 4 years younger. He is age 31. Bradley Beal probably be your two guard. Jimmy Butler probably be your 3 or your small forward? Which one would you rather have? Think about that for a little bit, and I want to get into this coming up here in just a little bit. But I want to throw that trade proposal out to you, Bucks fans, and which one would you rather have? And would you, so yay or nay, would you rather have Butler or Beal? And B, would you be good with giving up those three players, a Middleton, a Bobby Portis, and a Pat Connaughton? Knowing if you give up Bobby Portis, you're kind of lacking in the six-man department then for a big, for who's your big coming off the bench. So Bucks will be back in action coming up tomorrow night. Last game for the Bucks was on Sunday. And looking at the standings right now when it comes to the Eastern Conference, Bucks are holding on to that fourth spot in the Eastern Conference. They're 2.5 back from the Knicks for that third spot. Bucks riding a 4-game winning streak right now, 7-3 in their last 10. They have a game lead over the Pacers. Right now, Pacers currently sitting in that 5th seed. But Bucks 24-17 on the season. They've got the Pelicans coming up here. Coming off that win against the 76ers, which you look at the score, it was a 123-109 win against the 76ers. But if you listened or watched to the game, it was still kind of, especially on the defensive side and defensive effort. And I know Doc Rivers was not happy with the defensive effort from the Bucks against the 76ers the other night there too. So, but again, we talked about it last week. This was a stretch. This was a stretch of games for the Bucks to collect some wins and maybe perhaps move up in those Eastern Conference standings. They're not going to catch the Cavs, but maybe stay in that top 4 where they can host playoff game, playoff series when it's all said and done. So think about it for a little bit and let me know, Bucks fans. All right, we're going to take a quick break and we'll be back right at it, talking some hoops, talking some baseball, and also give me some predictions too. Does Ichiro go in the Hall of Fame unanimous? At Hy-Vee, they're more than just a grocery store. They are your one-stop shop for everything you need all in one place. From fresh produce and top-quality meats to your favorite snacks and household essentials, they've got you covered. Need a quick dinner solution? Check out their delicious ready-to-eat meals or swing by their in-store bakery and deli for made fresh daily options. And don't forget to fill up and take advantage of Hy-Vee's fuel savers. With friendly service, great prices, and convenience you can count on, Hy-Vee is here to make your day easier. All right. Bucks fans, what do you think? Butler or Beal? If it's going to cost you Middleton, Pat, and Portis, yay or nay? And which one would you be good with? Which one would you be good with? It's about 50-50 right now. Josh says, give me Beal. I did say that Bobby Portis would be a tough one, but he says, give me Beal. We've got Eric saying it'd be good if it was Bradley Beal. Would be a little bit worried on the bench depth, though. Rick says, no deal for me. Bobby Portis, I don't want to see the team move on from. Alex saying, we got a couple Alex texts here we'll get to here in a second. But Alex says, yes to Beal, no to Butler. Would be good with that package. Another texter, don't have a name, says no deal. It's a lot of depth to move on from. I understand Middleton's not playing a ton of minutes and such, but the big one there would be Bobby Portis. So it seems like from a lot of you right now that are just kind of chiming in here with this question, seems like the kicker or the thing that's turning you off from potentially making a deal like this is you don't want to move on from Bobby Portis. And I get that. And I totally understand that because I think if you were to include Bobby Portis in any trade packages, whether it was for Bradley Beal or Jimmy Butler, I think then you look at, okay, where's your depth coming from a big blow? Sure, you could probably go and get somebody out there to fill that role, but Bobby Portis though is could be a big time producer too. It's not just like plugging in a body out there. I mean, he's kind of more of that mold, that stretch 4, stretch 5, if you will, a guy that could defend on the perimeter as well, better than Lopez in that on the perimeter. But that would be my concern. I think I would agree with the majority of you out there. Is that would be my biggest concern if you make a move like that, where if we use the base of Middleton, Portis, and Pat Connaughton, losing Bobby Portis would be my biggest concern because of the depth that he provides, the position that he plays with that depth. I mean, if I were to pick between Butler and Beal, I'd probably trend towards Bradley Beal. I think for Butler, he wears out his welcome pretty darn quick when you look at the teams he's been in. And I don't know if that would now. I think the other part of this is that obviously last year Damian had interest in going to Miami and pairing up with Jimmy Butler and vice versa. So there's that. But I think if you make that move for Jimmy Butler, I go back and forth on this because Jimmy Butler really shines though too when it comes to the postseason. It's like playoff Jimmy. You kind of get through the regular season, but once you get to the postseason, that's like what Jimmy Butler kind of takes that next step. And where has been the weakness of this Bucks team when it's come to the postseason? One, it's been injuries, but two, it's like getting deep into the postseason besides their championship year. So I think you factor that into it a little bit. It's like, okay, Jimmy's really good in the postseason, but I think I still trend a little bit more to Bradley Beal. And you've got a backcourt then of Dame and Bradley Beal, and then you throw in Giannis at the 4, Brook would play the 5. Maybe you go a 3-guard lineup to fill in that 3 spot if Middleton's gone or such, and you put AJ Green, Andre Jackson Jr. is in there. Maybe you go a 3-guard lineup because I think the NBA has gone so positionless these last few years. It's not a typical 3, not a typical small forward. Back in the day when you think of your small forwards, it was like the Scottie Pippens, the Grant Hills, and that sort of thing. Some teams still have that, but it's more positionless these days. So, but gosh, moving on from Portis for me, that would be the tough pill to swallow there because of the depth purposes and that position that he plays on there. When Middleton's out there and Middleton's, giving you his 20 to 25 minutes and he's out there with Giannis, you got something there with those two. It's just, again, it boils down to the availability. Can he be available? Can he be available night in, night out? How much can you trust him to be out there? And I think, it's like, well, you're paying a lot of money for a guy to play 20, 25 minutes. You're darn right. That's the other problem with that. You're paying a ton of money to a guy for just playing 20 minutes a night and maybe not on a back-to-back. So, yeah, I've got problems with that too. And then the other factor, we've mentioned it a few times. He's Giannis's BFF. That's his man. That's his guy. That's his best friend. You move on from him. How much do you annoy your superstar? How much do you upset your superstar at that point? And let's be real. Bucks aren't making these moves without the approval of Giannis. We could sit here and talk about they should do this trade, they should do that trade, they shouldn't make this move. They've got John Horst, general manager, in place and such, but the real general manager of this team is Giannis. They ain't making a lot of these moves without talking to Giannis first. If Giannis goes in there and says, there is no way, I want you guys to trade Middleton and Portis. You do that, get rid of me. Well, then those talks are going to go nowhere. They're going to stall, dead on arrival. They're over with. Giannis is a de facto general manager of this team, just like every other superstar in the NBA that leads their team. It has become such an individualized sport if you were a superstar that you can determine so much of your team's course, of the franchise's direction based off one player. I get it to an extent. I understand it. Especially when it comes to certain franchises that are maybe in smaller markets. You're trying to keep your guy, your superstar, the reason why players want to come over to your team to begin with. You're trying to make them happy. You're trying to do as much as possible to make them happy. They're kind of the de facto GM. They're that guy that says, I want that player. Then the GM's got to try to make it work. Now, if Giannis signs off on bringing in either Bradley Beal or Jimmy Butler, and it may be at the cost of moving on from his friend Chris Middleton, then I think we got something. Then I think, if they're serious about this, they can make something work financially, money-wise. It's going to be tough. It's not going to be as simple as just logging onto your video game in NBA 2K5 or 2K25 or whatever it's called and making that deal. It's not going to be that simple. But the biggest hurdle that if the Bucks are serious in acquiring the likes of a guy like Bradley Beal or Jimmy Butler, the biggest hurdle that they've got to climb is the Giannis hurdle. Is it okay? Is it okay, Giannis, if we do this? No? Okay, we'll stop talking. Bucks are approaching right now the halfway mark of their season. 24-17 right now on the season. In fact, they are at the halfway mark. Excuse me. That's 41 games. 41 games into this. So, if you were to look at how this team has played in the first half of the season, where's your confidence? It's very hard, I think, to. I mean, if we did a grade on this, maybe a C for me. For this Bucks first half, you can't ignore the start that they had to the season. Yes, they're playing a lot better. I mean, leaps and bounds better than the first few weeks of the season. There's no question. In fact, if you take away that start 1-9, 2-8, whatever the heck it was, you take away that and maybe make it 500. They're probably sitting as a 3 seed in the Eastern Conference, which is probably where, 3 or 4, which they're currently at right now, is probably where a lot of people thought they'd be at to begin with. And maybe overall you're feeling better about the team. But we can't ignore what they did in the first few weeks of the season. You can't. But you can acknowledge that they have gotten a lot better, more consistent. Defensively, they've been getting better. It just feels like they're gelling maybe a little bit better too. So maybe the question is, if we're not grading it, given what you have seen in the first half, and it's kind of like, the first quarter and the second quarter, and maybe that's where you compare it, compared to what you saw in the first quarter of the season, compared to what you've seen in the second quarter of the season for this Bucks team. Where is your optimism, or where is your confidence level for this team as they head into the second half of the season? I got to imagine it's probably feeling a little bit better than when we asked the question after the first quarter of the season. You look at the schedule for this Bucks team in the second half. They don't play Boston anymore. They play. Don't think do they play Cleveland? Yeah, they play Cleveland just one more time. Cleveland at the top of their division. You look at some of the other top teams out there, and they don't play them. I mean, the Knicks, they play the Knicks. They play the Knicks one more time, it looks like, and that's not until March, and they don't play Cleveland again until March. Now, that's not to say they don't play any good teams. You look on the Western Conference side of things there. They've got Denver on there. They've got Golden State. They've got Minnesota still on the schedule and such. Indiana's on there a couple more times too. So, I mean, they've got good opponents on their schedule, but when you look at the teams that are ahead of them in the Eastern Conference, Boston, Cleveland, Knicks, one apiece for Cleveland and Knicks, and no more Boston. So, schedule-wise, okay, Eastern Conference, maybe a little bit easier than what it was in the first half. But it gets a little tougher when you look at the Western Conference because you got Oklahoma. They play the Thunder a couple more times on this thing here too. They got that on there. But I think for the outlook of this team, when you're looking at it for this second half, I think the arrow, if we do our little gauge-o-meter here for the Bucks, I think it's slightly pointing for me, in my opinion, maybe close to cautiously optimistic. Now, if I'm picking an NBA champion, NBA Finals, I'm not picking the Bucks. I just think the way Cleveland's playing right now, they're on such a tear. You still got Boston in this thing, okay? So right now, I'm not picking the Bucks to represent the Eastern Conference. And you look at how they've performed against Boston and Cleveland this year, and it wasn't good. Knicks even wasn't good. It's kind of like the Packers of this past season. You got to beat good teams. They're going to make the playoffs, but they've struggled against, in their conference, teams that are above them. Maybe since they are a veteran-led team that they can switch that gear, turn it on, and once the postseason starts, they could go on a little bit of a run here. Maybe it could be the opposite of what we've seen the last couple of years where they've dominated in the regular season. They get a high seed, but then it's a quick out in the postseason. Maybe it's a little bit of the opposite. Maybe it's like Spurs-esque back in the day. But heading into that, I mean, I feel optimistic that they're going to be a top 4 seed in the East. But at this point, I don't feel optimistic about them representing the Eastern Conference in the NBA Finals. I just don't. I feel better about this team than I did in October with how they started their season. I feel better about them than what they were looking like in November. But given what we've seen from Cleveland so far, we knew Boston was going to be up there. But given what we've seen from Cleveland, that throws a little bit of a wrench in this. And I think a lot of it's going to depend on when we get to that postseason time, standings, or the matchups when it comes to the brackets and such. That might determine how far this Bucks team goes into the postseason. And I think that's part of it too. I mean, when you look at this, is this Bucks team better than Boston? No. Are they better than Cleveland? No. Are they better than the Knicks? No. How do they get better? That's why we're hearing the Bradley Beal, Jimmy Butler trade rumors, getting a little bit more and more and more as we inch closer to that deadline. Bucks know it. They know they got a problem. If they want to be better than those three teams, they got to make a move. Can they, though? Will they be able to? I have my doubts. All right, let's before we take a quick break, we do have some college hoops games coming at you tonight. The newly ranked Badgers, 18th ranked Badgers, I should say, newly ranked 18th Badger basketball team, hitting up the West Coast. They're going to be taking on UCLA. Man, UCLA has been making some news lately with their coach Cronin. I mean, very upset. If you haven't seen some of the clips of last couple weeks, he's definitely not a fan of UCLA being in the Big Ten and having to travel to the East Coast, and as much as they've had to travel those distances and such. So, but they get to be home tonight as they welcome the Badgers to the West Coast. So, Badgers coming in for this game, sitting at 15-3 on the season. 15-3 on the season. In fact, UCLA is favored in this game coming into it. But when you look at the Big Ten overall and in the standings, I mean, conference play, Michigan State's undefeated. Purdue, 7-1. Michigan, 6-1. And then you got Wisconsin, 5-2. They're fourth right now in the Big Ten conference standings, 2 games back. Still 15-3 overall in the season. They're coming off that win against USC, 84-69. So, I mean, Badgers, they went off to the West Coast and picked up that win. John Blackwell, man. I mean, the beginning of the season was Tanjay. We were talking about him. And last year, we're like, okay, this John Blackwell kid's pretty special. Look ahead to sophomore year. And so we knew about him. We had high expectations for him. But it was kind of John Tanjay that began the season so hot, insanely hot. And now it's kind of been Mr. Blackwell's turn. 28 points against USC. He had 15 against Ohio State. Just 9 against the Gophers. But before that, dropped 21 against Rutgers. Had 32 against Iowa. When you look at this Badger team, especially on the offensive side of things, if we're just straight up looking on the offensive numbers, you've got John Tanjay, who's averaging 17.2 points per game, and John Blackwell, who's averaging 16.1 points per game. Those two are your guys. Your guys that are going to lead you. I mean, if this team is, when we get to the tournament, if this is a team that can get to the Sweet 16, we talk about guard play a lot when it gets to tournament time. You hear everybody, talking heads across the world, talk about guard play when you get to the big dance, when you get to that national tournament. And if the Badgers are going to make a run, if they're going to try to get to that Sweet 16, and I'm a believer that a lot's depend on seeds and brackets and matchups and such, and we got a long ways to go yet before that, but it's going to be led by these two guys, these two guards. And then don't kind of sleep on Max Klesman either. He might be I think he's kind of that sneaky guy that, he could come in there and give you a solid performance. I mean, he had 18 against USC. Before that, single digit scoring. But there could be one of these nights where he just goes off. Nolan Winters up there at 10.7, Stephen Krall also averaging 10.4. So your starters are all averaging double figures. Kamari McGee is your leading scorer coming off the bench right now. But this team, I think when you look at those two guards, I think Stephen Krall is a big-time factor when it comes to Big Ten play. Got to use his height. He's got to be a presence down low. But when it comes to tournament time, John Tanjay and John Blackwell are going to be the two guys that got to carry this team. So that game tonight against UCLA, tip time, 8:30 is going to be a little bit later because they are on the West Coast. So Marquette is also on the road tonight. They're going to be taking on Seton Hall. Marquette, now the 10th ranked team in the country, suffering their Big Ten loss just a few nights ago over there too. The latest rankings when it comes to the NCAA men's poll, you got Auburn now your new number 1 team. Duke has moved up to number 2. Iowa State 3, Alabama 4, Florida 5, Tennessee 6, Houston 7, Michigan State, your highest Big Ten team right now, sitting there at number 8, Kentucky 9, Marquette 10. Then it's Purdue, your next Big Ten team. They're sitting there at 11. Oregon's at 15, Illinois 17, Wisconsin at 18, Michigan at 21 to round out some of your Big Ten teams in this top 25. Trying to see if Wake Forest had Maryland had one over there too. That was another Big Ten team that received votes, but nah. Okay, let's take a quick break. We'll finish up the second hour. Don't forget to send me your grind my gears. Also, prediction time. Do you think Ichiro will be a unanimous Hall of Famer for the Baseball Hall of Fame? Yay or nay? I want to hear your sports takes. We'll be back in just a little bit. At Carpet City Flooring Center, they know that the right flooring can change everything, whether it's the cozy feel of new carpet in your living room or the timeless elegance of hardwood, of timeless elegance of vinyl, luxury vinyl planks that look like hardwood floors, or like the Rigid Max flooring in your dining area. Your floors set the stage for life's moments. Their team of experts are there to help with so much experience and a passion for finding the perfect flooring for your style and needs. From the latest trends to classic designs, they offer a wide selection of carpets, laminate, and luxury vinyl, and they can help you. They can even help you with remodeling your shower too. So, if it's been a while, if it's been a hot minute since that shower's been maybe retiled or redone, they can help you out over there too. And when it comes to installation, they've got you covered. Their professional installers ensure every detail is handled with care. So all you have to do is enjoy your beautiful new space. Stop by Carpet City Flooring Center today and let them help you bring your vision to life, because at Carpet City, it's more than flooring. It's where life happens. Visit them in store at 3109 East Hamilton Avenue in Eau Claire today. Got to give a shout out to Service Master too, by the way, dropping off some hot coffee here this morning on a cold, blustery day. So a big thanks to our good friends over there at Service Master. Coming up next hour, we're going to be talking with RJ Cardinal, our Badger analyst from the Zone in Madison. We'll talk to him here and talk some Badger football, the whole Xavier Lucas situation and such. So that's coming up next hour. Plus, we'll talk some more Badger hoops with him as well. We'll take your phone call starting in the next hour as well. Otherwise, if you can't hold it, can't wait, got to get your take in, hit us up with that text 715-830-1912 or comment on the video streams. We've got Grind My Gears. It is an ASAP used auto parts. Grind My Gears. C-Bomb saying if we're going with the Grind My Gears, nobody should be going to the Hall of Fame ever again until they put Pete Rose where he belongs. But yes, Ichiro should be unanimous. Let's take a look at MLB.com. And some people, there's the Thibodeau tracker out there, because there's so many voters for the Baseball Hall of Fame. And some of them release their ballots and post it up on social media. So you got your various trackers out there that keep tabs of everything. And right now, according to this tracker, Ichiro has 188 for 188. So 188 ballots on this tracker. Ichiro has been on every single one of them. That's 48% of the known ballots out there. So about 50. And at that pace, he's on track to become just the second player to be elected to the Hall of Fame unanimously. As we know, Mariano Rivera was the first one. If this was a few years ago, I'd say he wasn't going to be unanimous, just because it's the games that some of these voters play when it comes to this voting process. But the fact that Mariano got in as a unanimous, maybe that's changing a little bit. Maybe. But boy, if I had to put a guess, I think Ichiro gets in unanimous. I'm not confident in that yet, but I think he gets in unanimous. But in the same breath, it would not surprise me if he doesn't. But I think he does. That's my prediction. CC Sabathia, the one-time Brewers pitcher for half a season, but in a very memorable 2008 season. One of the more memorable seasons for me, especially in my generation, and I think for a lot of people out there too, because, I mean, we've talked about it at length, especially when Brandon's on in that. But 2008 was the first year for us in our lifetimes to experience a Brewers postseason. And a big reason, a huge reason why the Brewers were able to make that postseason was because of one CC Sabathia. When the Brewers acquired CC Sabathia, they rode on his back. I mean, he was such a difference maker for that team. And he was a huge reason. If you want to say the number one reason, I'm probably not going to argue with you. But if you had to put them in order, yeah, there's no question. CC Sabathia was a huge reason why that Brewers team went to the 08 playoffs. And they just CC was like, "Get on my back. I'm going to carry you there." And boy, did he. And it was just a fun season. And again, it was like, I know we've mentioned it a few times, but it was like, okay, they got there. We're just happy to be there. Just that feeling. But that was definitely a very memorable O season for sure over there. But according to the tracker, he's in his first year too. He has received 93.6% of the vote so far. So he's trending towards being elected in his first year, which I've got no problem. I think CC Sabathia should be a Hall of Famer. Now, after Ichiro and CC, where's it up? Who's up next? Could it be Billy Wagner? He just missed out on Cooperstown last year. Remember, you got to get 75% of the vote. Last year, he had 73.8% of the vote. Now he's on his 10th and final Baseball Writers of America Association ballot. Currently, it looks like he's going to get in. He's currently at an 84.6% of the ballots that are out there. So it looks like he's going to get there in his final year of eligibility on the Baseball Writers Association. And I was looking a little bit more at some of the players and where they're trending at. And one guy that may make a jump. Now, I don't know if he's going to be in it this year. I don't know if he'll get there, but there seems to be a big push for Carlos Beltran. He received 57% of the vote last year, or 50% of the vote on his second ballot last year. So this is his third time this year. And according to some projections, right now on that tracker, he's at 80.3%, which would get him in. But some other projections out there have him at about 73%. But that to me tells me he's going to get in eventually. That Carlos Beltran is going to get in. Andrew Jones, a guy that I think, a lot of us, I remember watching him with the Braves when the Braves were always on TV, right? TNT, TBS, everybody. I mean, especially growing up in Medford, there wasn't a whole lot of other baseball games to watch on TV besides Cubs on WGN and Braves on any Turner station over there. So, I mean, those Braves teams, whether it was Chipper, whether it was Glavine, Maddox, Smoltz, McGriff, you want to go a little bit older, but Andrew Jones was a part of that over there. 10 straight Gold Gloves. Think he kind of maybe even gets a little, when you talk about those Braves teams, maybe swept under the rug just a little bit. But it doesn't seem like he's getting the surge that he needs. So last year, according to this, he received 61.6% of the vote. But he's currently at 72.3% for this Hall of Fame track. Now, he's got 3 years of eligibility. So if he doesn't get in this year, 2 more after that. So if he finishes around, let's say, 72% in this bracket, or not in this bracket, in this poll or ballot, excuse me, I think eventually he'll get in one of those final 2 years there, but maybe not trending this year. So maybe possibly looking at 3 guys getting in. Ichiro, CC, and Billy Wagner in his final year of eligibility on the Baseball Writers of America Association ballot over there. So, Mark says, once again, I agree with C-Bomb. Pete deserves to be in the Hall. Lots of other players who are in, not exactly. Was it Lily White? Okay. Yeah, I think every year the ballot thing comes up. Everybody talks about Pete Rose. Who was it? I think it was after Pete Rose passed away. I saw a sports broadcaster I think it was a sports radio broadcaster talk about if you're ever struggling to come up with a topic, or you just want to throw out a topic of the day to get a lot of listener engagements and feedback and talking, just bring up Pete Rose. And then you're instantly, you got people talking. and you got people throwing in their opinions and that sort of thing. And he's exactly right. With the Hall of Fame vote coming up, and obviously a few months ago with Pete's passing, I'm sure that's going to be talked about again. The Pete Rose eligibility, and it's probably going to come up a couple times, few times each season after that. All right. So we only got a couple minutes left to the top. Coming up next hour, just in case you're just joining us, in the first hour we talked a little football with the NFC North now. I think getting really intriguing. You've got Ben Johnson going to be the head coach for the Chicago Bears. The Detroit Lions offensive coordinator is taking the head job over there in Chicago. Sounds like he's bringing Dennis Allen as his defensive coordinator. So if you're a Packers fan, you're a Vikings fan, whoever, when you see that hire, it's like, okay, it's a hit against Detroit. And it sounds like Aaron Glenn's going to be the head coach of the Jets. It's a hit against Detroit. But he stays in the division, and he's going to the Bears. The Bears. What are your thoughts on that move, Packers fans? A little concerned, a little worried, or anything like that? Vikings fans, if any of you are chimed in over there, I think the NFC North is going to be a wild, wild chase for the next few years here. If you're just a casual football fan and you just like football, NFC North, I think, is going to be fun to watch. It was fun to watch this year, but when it all mattered, when it came to the playoffs, nothing. No team won. No team won in the playoffs. Was it because they just beat up on each other so much in the regular season that when it came to the playoffs, had nothing left? I don't know if I buy that. I saw some people throwing that theory out there. I don't know if I buy that one necessarily, but it's out there. But what do you think, Packers fans, of the hiring of Ben Johnson, staying in the division but going to Chicago? Making you a little nervous? Or are you like, nah, Bears will still find a way to screw it up at that point? And then coming up in about 15, 20 minutes, we'll catch up with RJ Cardinal. Lots to break down with this Xavier Lucas situation with Wisconsin at. We'll get the latest on what he's hearing down in Madtown, in Madison, surrounding Xavier Lucas, Badger football, and the University of Miami. Plus, Badger hoops back in action tonight, too. Lots more to get to here. I'm going to take a quick break, and we'll be back after these news updates to wrap up this Tuesday morning.
gridiron, and the course. Dan's got you covered with his trademark blend of sports passion and knowledge. He has the sports info you want and the sports therapy you need. So get your game face on, people.
Let's go get some bell, huh? Put up or shut up time. We gotta get it started from the jump. Play big. Let's go. This is what legends made, man. It's showtime. Welcome to the big league. Let's go.
Because it's the Dan Casper Show.
All right, final hour kicking off right now on this blustery cold Tuesday morning. A big thanks for tuning in wherever, however you're tuning in from. Coming up in about 15 minutes or so, we're going to talk some Badgers with Mr. RJ Cardinal. He'll be joining us. We're definitely going to be talking a lot about the Xavier Lucas situation going down there and such. So we'll talk some Badger football with him. Ohio State's getting a national championship win over Notre Dame last night, so we're officially in the offseason when it comes to college football. Badger hoops are also in action tonight, so we'll hit that up as well. Taking your predictions, do you think Ichiro will be a unanimous selection? 100% of the votes for Major League Baseball? Let us know. Give me your predictions by hitting us up with a text or commenting on the video stream there. Taking your phone calls here this morning. First up, we've got our good buddy, Mr. C-Bomb, joining us. Good morning, C-Bomb. How are you doing, sir?
Good morning, El Capitano. I am freezing my tootsies off out here. It is frigid.
Shouldn't you be used to that by now with all your cold plunges and all that sort of stuff? I mean, for crying out loud, you do that for fun. So,
hey, 35-degree water is much different than negative 20-degree cold freaking air. It is. Yeah, we all know it is brutal.
Are you gonna be doing any plunges this year? Polar plunges and such?
Absolutely.
Not a boy.
But not well. If it's like the water's going to be like bath water if you jump in it at 30 degrees with this type of weather.
Nice. Hey, what's on your mind this morning, bud?
Hey, Ben Johnson.
Yeah.
Here's what I think. I know for sure it's going to be a hit to Detroit, which is going to be good for us because let's be honest, his creativity is something else. But I think it's to be determined with the Bears. Just because he's a great schemer and a great offensive mind doesn't necessarily mean he's a great head coach. Head coaches need to be great leaders of men and organizers and being able to delegate. That's part of the reason why MCDC has done so well in Detroit.
Mm-hmm.
The team follows him, right? You look at a guy, and I loved him coming out as an OC, and he's been a flop as a head coach, as a guy like Josh McDaniels, right?
Yeah, yep.
So I think it's to be determined on what Ben Johnson does for Chicago, but their roster's loaded. Caleb Williams did show some really, really good flashes this year, and I'll tell you what, man, the NFC North is going to be a gauntlet for the next 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, we can't, and I don't think it's been the case the last couple of years, but I mean, especially during the 2000 teens there, I think us Packers fans kind of could just rest on our laurels a little bit and just assume we were going to win the division because we were going to outscore everybody. We still had issues with the defense, but with Aaron and those receiving core, we figured we were always going to win a division. This division, though, to the next few years, I know, it was good this year. They didn't win a postseason game this year. But I think for the next few, it's going to be a dogfight, man. Looking at these division games, I think they're going to be – you can make the case for any team winning each of those matchups.
Absolutely. We were a pinky finger away from not even winning a game in our division. So and all these teams are going to get better. So we really do need to step up. And it's going to be harder, I think, to get out of our division than to move through the playoffs in the coming years, although this year it didn't really – line up that way, but I think it's Green Bay, like you said, kind of rested on their laurels. We almost just penciled in the playoffs every year. It was almost like the Patriots in the NFC East for 2 decades.
Yeah.
So it's not the same old NFC North anymore.
Going back to Thursday, really quick, Goody's presser, and I know Thursday was kind of overshadowed a lot with Bob Uecker's passing and such, so we didn't get to talk about it a whole lot on Friday, but Goody in his season-ending presser, I thought an interesting quote from him was, quote, "We need to continue to ramp up our sense of urgency. I think it's time we start competing for championships." And part of me thinks, too, like, I think he realizes too how tough this division is going to be going, in the next few years. When you hear your general manager say that, is he putting pressure on his coach? Is he putting pressure on his quarterback? Is he putting pressure on himself? Is it all the above? Do you like it when you hear your general manager say something like that?
I think that was the best line of his whole press conference. I think, we need to have pressure put on the coach and the players. I mean, hold yourselves accountable.
Mhm.
Jordan Love, he's got a big payday. He needs to start playing up to it. And Matt LaFleur, if they go one and done next year in the playoffs or miss the playoffs, I think his seat starts getting a little warm.
Mhm.
And I love Matt LaFleur. I don't want to see him go anywhere.
I agree with you. I think, I don't think he should be on the hot seat right now, but I agree. I think 2025 is a big year for him, for Jordan Love and all that. Really quick, last question before I let you go here, C-Bomb, because in the first hour we kind of began our off-season self-scouting. We looked at coaches, since coaches is a big topic right now. Where are you on the Rich Bisaccia side? Because it feels like if you look at social media or Twitter, you got a lot of fans saying Packers should move on from Rich Bisaccia. Where are you on that side of the aisle?
Oh, it is a tough one because is it a matter of holding people accountable? A coach can scheme, a coach can put players in the position, but players have to make the plays, and you can't put it on Bisaccia for players not following. We're punting left. There's only a few calls on the punt team: punt left, punt right. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So if they're all running to the right like they did against the Bears, or to the left, or whatever direction, opposite of where the Bears were going, that's on the players. So he's getting a lot of money. We need better production out of them, but it's about execution. And does he have to hold players more accountable? I don't know, but I do like Rich Bisaccia, and I'm on the fence either way. I'm good with either way, if they keep him or if they move on.
Yeah, I think you hit it when you talk about accountability and that. Yes, you could take a knock on that, but in the same breath, if we're going to hit him on those aspects, we got to give him a little bit of credit for Daniel Whalen's development, don't we?
Oh, absolutely. Whalen was phenomenal, and blame Bisaccia for the kicking. As soon as McManus came in, boy, that cleaned up quick. So it's about execution, and Bisaccia has to hold players accountable. And at the end of the day, they gotta execute on the field.
Mm-hmm. I agree. All right, C-Bomb. So you think Ichiro gets in unanimous today for the Hall of Fame?
I think he will. I think he should. He deserves it. He was a phenomenal player, but like I said, man, nobody should be in until they fix the Pete Rose thing. That's been ongoing, and with all these major sports making all their money off betting now, sweep what happened under the rug and do what's right by the man.
I agree. All right, C-Bomb. Hey, appreciate the phone call this morning. Stay warm, buddy, and we'll talk with you again soon, okay?
Thanks for having me, brother. It's Brewer season now. Let's go, Crew.
There we go. All right, there's C-Bomb hopping off on the Shoe Doctors bullpen line here this morning. A few more texts to get to here. This is from Ben. Ben says, I'm not in favor of moving on from Rich Bisaccia. I think the Packers should hold on to him, but definitely need to see some more improvement in terms of coverage and limiting the penalties. Eric says no to moving on from Rich Bisaccia. I think it's more of a talent issue than it is with a coaching issue. So another one here. We've got Derek. Derek says on our texting line, Derek says no to firing Rich Bisaccia. It's more of players trying to, excuse me, I'm choking up here a little bit. It's more of a player thing than a coaching thing when it comes to special teams. I think we're going to see the Packers focus on getting more veterans involved in special teams like they did when they first brought in Rich Bisaccia. And then John says if Reggie Bush can get his Heisman back, then Pete Rose deserves to go in the Hall of Fame. All right, tell you what, we're going to take a quick break here, and then I want to talk some Badgers. I've been waiting all morning to get RJ's feedback with the Xavier Lucas situation going on here. I mean, over the weekend, we had the Badgers coming out with a statement, Big Ten coming out with a statement with the whole drama surrounding Xavier Lucas and him going to Miami, a lot of finger pointing, a lot of accusations and such. We'll talk to RJ about this. Plus, we've got Badger basketball tonight to get to. We'll get back to some more phone calls and more texts a little bit later on. So hit us up with the text while you're listening to RJ and such, if you'd like. If you got something on your mind, don't forget it is an ASAP Used Auto Parts Grind My Gears Tuesday as well. Quick break. We'll be back in just a few minutes. When it comes to fresh, quality meats, nobody does it better than Mike's Star Market in Eau Claire. From hand-cut steaks and juicy burgers to premium brats and snack sticks, they have everything you need to make your next meal unforgettable. And don't forget, hunters, they are your go-to place to drop off your game to get your meat processed. So stop by and give Mike's Star Market a visit at 2238 Heimstead Road in Eau Claire. Mike, Sarah, and the entire staff there will greet you with a hi and answer any questions that you may have. Mike's Star Market, deliberately old-fashioned to assure quality and affordability. We had the wrap-up of the college football season last night. Ohio State defeating Notre Dame 34-23 for the national championship, so a win for the Big Ten Conference over there. But it was just a few days ago, too, the Badger football team making some waves with a statement on the Xavier Lucas situation. Big Ten Conference also coming out with a statement. A lot of finger pointing. He said, she said, this, that, the other thing. So let's bring in our expert, Mr. RJ Cardinal from the Zone in Madison, who's joining us this morning. First of all, happy offseason, RJ, to the college football season. How overall, now we got a champion. How do you think the playoffs went overall?
I'm not too upset about it. It's one of those, I mean, we're now in the age of the haves and have-nots, but still you had a scenario where the 8 and the 7 seed made it all the way. So maybe, a jump to 12 was a little too much, but I mean, it's a money grab, right? Mm-hmm. So it's not like when you had the opportunity, it was going to just jump immediately. I don't think we need to go to 16 anytime soon, if ever. And really, if you wanted to take it down to 8, as what we were talking about this morning, it like still January 1st still is like one of those, this is an important day, in college football. And it's kind of put a damper on that. And I mean, how much did you hear talk of the national championship game this year? Mm-hmm. Like, even on the network that was airing it, I think I know why they weren't talking about it. And it's because you have an independent team who plays all their games on NBC, except when it trickles down to ESPN to make a selection. And you had a team from a conference that left you for the first time since 1982 or whatever it is, and got $1 billion from Fox, NBC, and CBS. And I think they were actively trying not to publicize the game and doing anything they could to kind of bury it, to eventually have bad ratings, to say, look, something needs to change. And this isn't what we signed up for. But, I think if they actually do that, you can have the NCAA be like, oh, well, we'll find somebody else who will. Mm-hmm. So whatever the actual reasoning is behind it, I enjoyed the game. It looked like it was going to be a blowout. Notre Dame made a go of it late, but good. I actually enjoyed the playoffs. So it wasn't the same old of the good old boys group. Like, I mean, you had some people who quote unquote didn't belong. Well, that one of those teams won the national championship this year. The other one was in the national championship game. They lost to Northern Illinois. Well, they beat everybody else. Mm-hmm. So it's actually, even with some of the blowouts, I enjoyed the college football playoff this year.
Yeah, I got more into it too. I think, looking at, these different, bowl games, and do you think it took a little bit of the luster away from like the traditional bowl games, like the Rose Bowl and that sort of thing? Or did it still have that same prestige to you?
Since those bowl games are part of the college football playoff, I think it preserved that for a little bit. It's still letting the New Year's Six are prestigious bowl games, whether you have a historical tie to it or not. It's like when people complained about the Badgers playing in the Orange Bowl and the Cotton Bowl. It was still a New Year's Day 6 bowl and they won,
Mm-hmm.
But it's, I think putting those bowl games as college football playoff games still lets you know those bowls are the important ones. And for the longest time, they were some of the only ones. And then even those bowl games had sub bowl games, like, the Citrus Bowl had the Tangerine Bowl under it, and the Orange Bowl that's all part of the same group of people putting on a game. So it's still, some bowls still matter. I think for a while though, we knew a lot of them don't.
Mm-hmm. Right. Even though we had, the bowl, the national championship yesterday and such, Wisconsin kind of making some news over the weekend here, and I got to imagine that was a big talking point for you guys down in Madison. But Wisconsin coming out with a statement with the whole Xavier Lucas situation. We won't read the whole thing. We posted it up on our socials just a couple days ago. But essentially, Wisconsin is saying, hey, we signed into a 2-year NIL agreement with Xavier Lucas on December 2nd. Then all of a sudden he decides to go to Miami. They said they've got evidence of tampering and such from the University of Miami. Big Ten Conference comes out with a statement saying they stand in full support of Wisconsin with this situation. Now, I know Xavier's lawyer, at least on Twitter, I saw a couple days ago, he laid out a bunch of different points where Wisconsin's in the wrong on this whole sort of thing. When you saw those statements and all that, RJ, I mean, what's going through your mind, or what kind of pops out to you when you were reading all that? I think, was it Sunday when it all dropped? Sunday night when it dropped?
Saturday.
Was it Saturday? Okay.
I think Saturday the statements dropped, and then Xavier Lucas's lawyer started talking more, because that's what I always want in my lawyer.
Yeah.
Somebody to go to a public forum and just talk about our plan.
Right.
And then started celebrating when, let's see, he used the term unenrolled, so
right.
they could get around the transfer portal. Unenrollment isn't a thing. You go to your registrar's office and you tell them you're dropping all your classes. He dropped out of college to go to a school he never talked to about playing there. You tell me what's going on there.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
He made up a story about his dad being gravely ill. As we've seen from that Yahoo article and some other Badger beat writers for different websites and stuff who got in touch with his dad. His dad was not aware of the situation, and they didn't really touch on ask the question, but he said he was fine. And then you had the lawyer admit, yeah, we kind of made stuff up to try to get a hardship to get out of school. And then when that didn't work, they dropped out. It's not unenrolled. He dropped out of school to circumvent the transfer portal to enroll in Miami, a school which he never talked to. And yet his mom gets really upset whenever anybody mentions that he talked to them. So it's a whole weird situation. The lawyer keeps mentioning Wisconsin and the Big Ten are doing pay for play, and signed a 2-year agreement for the possibility of whatever is going to come down the road in revenue sharing, which, we'll see what happens there. But, the lawyer did confirm, in fact, he did sign something, and then said Wisconsin made him sign it in a really shady way. So, whatever that way is, we'll find out if this ends up going to the courts or anything like that. But, the NCAA hasn't taken any action against Wisconsin. So you tell me what the bylaw is for the transfer portal. The verbiage makes it very unclear.
Yeah.
Because it says a university has 48 hours to put them in the portal once they let them know. Sure, they have 48 hours to do it, but it doesn't say they have to do it.
Yeah,
that's two different words. The university has 48 hours to put them in there. it doesn't say they have to put them in there. So you don't have to approve it.
Mm-hmm.
It just says they have 48 hours to approve it. So, I mean, if you want to get into semantics, I mean, there's verbiage there that isn't really clear.
Right.
And, over the last few years, they've had almost 50 kids go in, and only one wasn't entered. I think, there might be a bigger issue there than this lawyer wants to admit.
Yeah, when I was reading the statements and for, I don't know, I guess for me, when I hear Wisconsin say, hey, we have evidence against the University of Miami for tampering stuff, you don't go out there with a public statement saying that. And then like a few minutes later after you release that and the Big Ten comes out and says, we support Wisconsin. I mean, they've got to have, in my opinion, some strong evidence to already go out there and say, hey, we've got evidence of this. That Miami was doing this and that sort of stuff. So, I mean, do you get the same gist with that?
Yeah, I think no matter what, they're probably consulting with the Big Ten office as well on what to do and how to word things and all that. Since the conference is behind them, I saw a lot of people pointing out, think of this. You're a Twitter lawyer who teaches a class at Miami. And, the old saying, it's going to sound bad, I love teachers. Those who can't teach.
No, yeah. It's like, yeah. You hear that a lot. No offense, because I almost was a gym teacher, right? Coach or
right.
a coach
and
or something like that. So,
and then the saying is after that, and those who can't teach gym.
Yeah. Yep.
So, or those who can't teach coach.
Exactly.
I saw a lot of people pointing out there. Imagine being an NIL teacher at Miami and thinking you stand a chance against the conference that has 8 of the top 10 law schools in the nation.
Yeah.
I mean, like the Big Ten in Wisconsin, if this ends up going to court or whatever, I mean, they have the resources to keep this going. I'm not sure Miami and this guy, and even Xavier Lucas, because depending on his thing, it's apparently there's a 2-year exclusive rights deal for Wisconsin. He signed it, so not sure how he's going to be making money at Miami because he can't. And so it'll be interesting to see how that happens. But there's some deep pockets coming this way, and I think we kind of see that now that everything's above table. The last 2 college football champions are from the Big Ten. We've talked about it a lot. The Big Ten is a worldwide brand. The SEC, ACC, Big 12, and the only other semi-worldwide brand there was in college athletics was the Pac-12, because they're on a coast and they get a lot of international students as well. But when you are a regional brand trying to go up against a global brand, chances are it's not going to turn out well for you. And now that things have opened up, I think we're going to see Big Ten football as a whole be considered better than what people thought. Especially, I mean, you had 2 teams make the playoffs who had $20 million plus rosters. It is what it is. I saw Nick Saban last night say there has to be reform because this can't happen. And I think he was solely referring to the Big Ten being good. Like much of ESPN was trying to shill all this season because they don't have their TV rights anymore. So, it's one of those things that it's all about the money now. Even though it was before too, it just wasn't for the athletes. It's, we were in a new age of college sports.
Yeah, and no question. So let me just to kind of maybe wrap this up before we move on to some hoops and such. For anybody listening, like, okay, so why is Wisconsin making a big deal about this for a kid out there? Let him go and let him go to Miami and such. What would you say to that if there's anybody out there saying, like, why is Wisconsin making a big deal about this?
I think it was bound to happen somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
It's just happened to be Wisconsin is the first major school to do this, and it's really a part of trying to, push for NIL reform. And it's not, and I would think most schools are going to want this to happen. And it's one of those, the NCAA probably wants it to happen too. Because even though it's for the universities and student athletes, they still want their money. And if they don't put reform on things, you could see college basketball and football move to their own entity and let everybody else stay in the NCAA. And they can't afford to lose that. Those are their money makers. But it's something that it's going to hurt the student athletes, because I think most schools want what's a true NIL was supposed to be. Everybody thought it was just going to be, let the local car dealership, let them be in commercials. Because one of Johnny Manziel's points was, why can't I go sign autographs somewhere and ask for $10 a pop? People just thought it was going to be all nice and innocent like that. And the people who are complaining about pay for play, there's student athletes. There's athletes who, before they go on an official recruiting visit, are asking for $100,000 just to go visit your campus. That's not what NIL is about. There's, whether people want to say there is no pay for play, there's pay for play. Come on.
Mm-hmm.
It's just not in writing anywhere. And the Big Ten is the first one to kind of create contracts that are incentive based. That's a contract. It's not pay for play. It's like, hey, if you're not playing, I get it. People want to call it pay for play, but if you're not doing your part, just like somebody who's an employee on the academic side at the university. Now, if you have tenure, it's a little different. You can start loafing around and doing all that. But if you don't, you have to work your butt off to keep your job. And it's a contract. I don't understand this whole pay for play stuff, because everything's pay for play, no matter what you do. Mm-hmm. And it's like, it's just, I guess in sports, it's a little more quote unquote obvious, because if you're not playing well, you're considered a bust, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if you're not playing well, there should be a way to take money back for you not doing well. And I get pay for play, all that kind of stuff. But when people get to university and they get $1 million a year, it's not like they're getting that for commercials and stuff like that. That's pay for play as well.
Mm-hmm. And the thing is, odds are this is probably going to happen again at another university, right? This isn't going to be the only time we hear something like this, right?
Yeah, depending on, I think, how this all turns out and how quickly stuff happens. You could start seeing other schools not putting things in, or making binding contracts mandatory and stuff like that. And I mean, that can stop people entering the transfer portal right away. Sure, a kid could, you'd have to enter the transfer portal first, but kind of go shop themselves around. It's what they're doing anyway. It's one, it could happen to, put rules in place a little sooner than the NCAA intended. And who knows, because even when NIL was about to be a thing, they asked Congress to do it, and they were like, not our job. And the NCAA goes, oh, well, people know what the spirit of this is, so they'll be fine.
Mm-hmm. Right. Let's switch over to some hoops here, RJ. Badgers staying on the West Coast, taking on UCLA. Mick Cronin, the head coach for UCLA, has got to be happy he's not coming to Wisconsin, because he's tired of traveling to the East Coast already. If nobody knows what I'm talking about, you can look at his comments from the last couple of days here. So he's got to be happy he's not going to be in this cold weather, I guess.
Well, I will say, though, when they traveled, they went back and forth. Like, that's dumb.
Yeah, right?
Like, you took the longest flight in the conference 4 times. That's on you.
Yeah.
Like, just look at Wisconsin. Those guys have stayed there. Like, they're missing school, but they're quote unquote still in class. They're doing their stuff. But yeah, don't fly back and forth.
Right.
Like, just be smart about it. And whatever. But
you don't have to see the Statue of Liberty twice. That's
You could go visit a different landmark
right
while you're staying there the whole time. But I mean, basketball team seems to be doing pretty good after those 3 straight losses. But we are at 7 in a row right now, and
number 18 in the country. I mean, John Blackwell's playing. It was like John Tonje was the first guy this season, and he's still playing well. But now it's like Blackwell's joining in on the run. I mean, between those 2 guys right now, that's a fun duo to watch with this team.
Oh, absolutely. And like ever since getting called out, Stephen Crowell's been playing better. We've seen good things from Kamari McGee as the 6th man, who's, I mean, he had 28 minutes last game. And
plus a little chit chat with Caleb Williams too, which I enjoyed. So
yeah. And he's being a contributor offensively and defensively. And I mean, the team's just looking all right. And even though, like you said, no points for Tanji, but I mean, Blackwell had 28, Klesman 18, Nolan Winter 13, Stephen Crowell 9. But he's pulling down rebounds and looking a little more assertive on the court. Now, hasn't really faced any aggressive 7-footers in there, except for like the Ohio State game, and that was a close one. But Wisconsin was still able to prevail after having a 16 or 17 point lead kind of dwindle. But still, a win's a win. It's one of those. They're adding quad 1 and 2 wins here. Their resumes looking better and better after those 3 losses, and I think they've climbed back to where they were prior to the 3 straight losses.
Yeah. So I mean, you look at the Big Ten overall. I mean, Michigan State's up there. I mean, you got a lot of teams kind of in that mid range of rankings and such. But with the conference schedule, just kind of I know it's kicked off at the beginning of the month. I think this is going to be a fun race to the finish, RJ, here with a group of, Michigan State, Illinois is in there, Purdue's in there, Wisconsin, obviously, as well. Michigan has been up there, all those teams. Do you think there is a clear-cut favorite right now coming out of the Big Ten at this point?
That is a great question. I think not really. Maybe Michigan State. They're playing very well. But Wisconsin always has trouble with Illinois. Still got that game coming up. I think the remaining games, except for Washington, who's a quad 3, are all quad 1 or 2s. And most of them are quad 1s. Your quad 2s are Nebraska, Indiana, Minnesota, and Penn State. Other than that, UCLA, Northwestern's even a quad 1. UCLA, Maryland, Northwestern, Purdue, Iowa again, Illinois, Oregon, and Michigan State, all quad 1. So you have the rest of the season here is going to be a good chance to be a resume builder. You're already almost at 20 wins for 15. No, what is it? What are they at? That is a great question. What is their record? I don't even know. They're doing well though. 15-3.
15-3. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, you're 5 wins away from being a 20 wins, and you got a good portion of the season left to get those wins. We've in the past, if you're a 20-win team in the Big Ten, chances are you're going to be making the NCAA tournament. And from what we've seen from this team this year, the amount of times they've scored 80-plus points, it's something we haven't seen in I don't know when. Even on the Final Four runs, I'm not sure we have seen this kind of offense from the team, and it's just good to see. And you have a team who's on pace to be the leader in free throw percentage as of now. So that's good to see as well. And Wisconsin's back to, getting to the line and making more free throws than their opponents are even attempting, except in some games like the Ohio State game where I think it took until 10 minutes left in the second half for them to shoot a free throw against one of the most fouling teams in the Big Ten. But, that is what it is, I guess. And, good things are happening on this 7-game win streak. So hopefully that continues tonight at UCLA.
Absolutely. Before I let you go, RJ, just really quick, I know hockey-wise, the women's team number 1 in the country after this past weekend taking out St. Thomas. They got St. Cloud State's coming up here, and then the men's team getting first of all a 6-3 win, then winning in shootouts over the weekend too. But they got Michigan coming up here as well.
Yeah, the ladies 24-1-1. The loss and the tie are to Ohio State, so they're 2-1-1 against them this year, and that's really their biggest competition of the entire season. They have a 120 plus 122 goal differential. I mean, through 26 games, they've allowed 27 goals. That's ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
And some of those, the two highest scoring are Ohio State with 3 against them twice, and then a loss in the shootout down in Chicago. But other than that, the highest goals against is 2, I believe, or maybe there's another 3 in there. But still, you're averaging just over 1 goal a game, and that's a pretty good way to go about it. I mean, this team, they've hit some transfer portals, but still a lot of homegrown Badgers on this team, and it's become a culture of winning championships, and that's why a lot of the players say they're here because it's the best chance to win a national championship. And top 3 lines all could be top lines elsewhere. So, I mean, you're essentially rolling out there with 3 to 4 number 1 lines, and it just shows the selflessness of a lot of the players on this team who have bought into what's going on. So there are still some resemblances of college athletics, but for the most part, it's on the women's side of the sport because they still. Time here, so in some aspect it becomes an individual sport with team scores still counting for something, but the way tournaments are run, we probably aren't going to qualify for any postseason team stuff, but yeah, it's been a good year, and looking forward to the tournament time coming up here.
Awesome. RJ, good stuff as always, man. We appreciate you taking some time here and catching up with us here in the 715. You have a good rest of your week. Stay warm, bud. And
definitely trying.
Yeah, and hey, we'll catch up with you next week, okay, sir?
Sounds good. We'll talk to you then.
You got it. RJ Cardinal joining us here this morning for a little bit. We got to take a really quick break, and then we got to hammer through some picks and predicts coming up here. So let's do that. Really quick break, our final break, and then picks and predicts coming at you after these quick words. It's Tuesday, which means it's tacos at the VFW Post, 305 on Star Avenue. 3 soft shells or 3 hard shell tacos with chips and salsa. It's going to be $8, $9 with chicken. That's a heck of a deal. So warm up with our good friends at the VFW Post at 305 with some taco specials going on today. All right, well, we got a couple minutes or a few minutes here to the top here, so we got to fly on through here. Let's do some picks and predicts brought to you by our good friends from the Elbow Room, located right next to the Banbury Place. Again, if you're looking for somewhere to warm up, grab a good beverage, cool down with a beverage, but warm up with body temps, you can head on over to the Elbow Room in Eau Claire. We got some college basketball games to pick. We got a few NBA games we're going to throw into this equation as well. But let's start it off with college hoops here. Holding off on the Wisconsin one for last. Mississippi State, number 14, Mississippi State at number 6, Tennessee. I'm going to ride with the Vols. I'll go with Tennessee tonight. What else do we got here? We're going to go with Marquette at Seton Hall. Give me Marquette in this one to pick up the win. Let's go with the Gophers going to be visiting Iowa. Iowa's favored by 9.5. I will go with the Hawkeyes tonight. And then we'll wrap it up here with Wisconsin at UCLA. UCLA is favored by 3.5 in this game. I just like the way Wisconsin's playing right now, man. I like what John Blackwell, John Tonje, even Steven Krall. I'm going to go with Wisconsin picking up the W tonight. I'm going to go with the Badgers. So NBA-wise, again, just a few games on the docket here. Knicks at Brooklyn. Yeah, give me the Knicks in this one. Portland at Miami. Give me the Heat. Philly at Denver. Give me Denver. Denver's favored by 13.5. I don't think they cover in that one, though. Washington at the Lakers. Give me the Lakers. Orlando at Toronto. Orlando favored by 1.5 in this one. Give me the Magic for the win. Let's throw in a couple of NHL games here too. Why not? It's cold. It's hockey weather. Florida at Anaheim. I'd love to go with the Ducks. My kid just watched Mighty Ducks D2 for the first time the other day, but I'm going to go with the Panthers tonight. Washington at Edmonton. Give me Edmonton in this one. Tampa Bay at Montreal. I'm going to go with the Canadiens. I don't know why. I got a feel. I'm going to go with the Canadiens. San Jose Sharks at Nashville. Give me the Preds. And then we'll go with Buffalo at Vancouver. I'll go with Vancouver in this one. Detroit at Philadelphia. Give me the Flyers. And then Ottawa at the Rangers. I'll go with the Rangers over there too. So, all right. Those are your picks and predicts. Again, brought to you by our friends at the Elbow Room. A big thanks to all of you for your ASAP Used Auto Parts Grind My Gears Tuesdays. A couple more texts to get to here before the shot clock cuts me off. What grinds my gears, according to Mike? What grinds his gears? Is Ohio State winning the national championship. I know it helps the Big Ten, but I can't root for conference or division teams. So I was hoping Notre Dame would be able to pull it off. What grinds my gears, says Derek, is how the officials treat Patrick Mahomes. I was waiting for somebody to say this. I know it's been a couple days, so maybe it kind of went by the side burner or such. But yeah, definitely a lot of talk about that Chiefs and Texans game with the officiating and maybe favoriting Patrick Mahomes there a little bit. But yeah, I was waiting for somebody to throw in the grind my gears with officiating with Patrick Mahomes. Be curious with all the attention and the talk that it's gotten. How will it affect the game between the Chiefs and the Bills this weekend, if at all? I don't know, but I think when you have Walt Anderson, the VP of officiating on your NFL Network show the following day to answer questions about it, they know about it. They're aware of it. So, but we might have to hit that one up more coming up tomorrow. That's a good one. I was waiting for somebody to do that. So thanks for texting that one in a little bit earlier. Finally, one more. What grinds my gears is if Ichiro, this is from Tim, if Ichiro doesn't get in with 100% of the ballot, whoever didn't vote for him needs to have their ballots removed. Well, we'll find out later today if he's going to get in with 100% of the votes. A big thanks to everybody for chiming in, participating. If we didn't get to your texts or your phone calls here this morning, Try again next tomorrow. We appreciate you keep trying and such. But big thanks for you participating in the program and giving me your takes and your thoughts. Keep those coming, especially tomorrow as we are making a turn and stock reports are going to be due tomorrow. DP Danitz, they're up next. Have yourself a fantastic rest of your Tuesday. Stay warm, especially if you got to work outside. Farmers, construction, delivery, whoever, be safe. Stay warm, okay? And take care of those pets that got to go out there too. We'll be back at it tomorrow morning. Talk to you then.